Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is David and today we are continuing in our series of FPL Scout Reports, which is our opportunity to look at new players coming to the Premier League from foreign clubs or from different divisions, and also to have a look at players who have changed clubs within the Premier League, which is where we're going to operate today, because this video is all about Alexis Mac Allister, who has very recently signed for Liverpool for a reported £35 million fee. And you've got to say it's quite a deserved signing as well. He's done very well recently, had a good 12 months and has earned that big money move. But of course, the question is, what does that mean for FPL? And that's what we're going to look at today. Now, before we continue, I can't go any further without pushing you guys back to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, the website itself, specifically the editorial department where my good friends Neil, Tom and Mark have been working on some fantastic content throughout the summer. While you guys are all having your summer rest, they are still cooped up in the editorial room, cooking up some fantastic content for you to enjoy, of which the Scout Reports are just one example. We've already done one video on one of the articles on whether Mark Flecken is going to be the new David Raya, and today we're going to be looking at Neil's article on Alexis Mac Allister. Now, I have to just clarify that because Mac Allister has been in the Premier League over the last 12 months, it does mean there is a lot of data from the Fantasy Football Scout members area in this article, which means that part of that article is members only, which means that unfortunately part of this video is exactly the same thing. So there's a few bits in this that we can talk about, and there's a few bits in this general discussion that we can't. But fear not, that does not mean that you can't access all of that content, because at the moment you can grab yourself a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Football Scout membership. So if you head to the website and sign up for that, you will be able to read the whole of Neil's article, and that is just one of many benefits that you will get if you sign up for that, including a full access to the members area, which I can personally guarantee will help you win your mini leagues and improve your FPL record. So, with that out of the way, let's move on to the very beginning of our research into Alexis Mac Allister. And it's been a really interesting story following this guy over the last couple of years. I know that Az especially is a big fan. He's done very well at Brighton. But his story is very, very interesting. And it's very similar to a lot of the players that Brighton find, because they're just very, very good at this. He's actually still very young. And so he is a product of the Argentina Juniors Academy, made his senior debut in October 2016. He was aged just 17 at that time. And but played a very big, important part in that campaign with 23 league games as a 17-year-old in what is described by many as a breakthrough campaign. And so it was that helped him catch the eye of that very, very impressive Brighton scouting network. And he was only just out of his teens when they signed him in January 2019. They then loaned him back to Argentina, where he played with Argentina's Juniors still, and then Boca Juniors. And in that time, despite being very young, earned his Argentina first cap, which of course that ended well. He's now a World Cup winner and was a big part of that campaign. But it wasn't until March 2020 that he got his first shot at the Premier League, when he made his Brighton debut. But even then, kind of started slow. So you'll see on the screen right now his campaign 2019-20 season: 4 starts, 5 sub-appearances, 348 minutes, no goals, no assists, just 12 FPL points, all of that for appearances. So it took a little while for him to be involved in the conversation. 2020-21 season, 13 starts, 8 sub-appearances, 1,108 minutes, but just 1 goal, 1 assist, 3 bonus, and 48 points from that time. It wasn't until Boxing Day 2021, that's when he became a regular under Graham Potter. And in the 21-22 season, he started 20 of the final 22 league fixtures. And so across the course of that campaign, 22 starts, 11 substitute appearances, 2,112 minutes, 5 goals, 2 assists, 8 bonus, 93 points. Started to see him slowly ramp up to the 22-23 season, where he really exploded both on the international scene and in the Premier League. 34 starts, 4 sub-appearances, 2,882 minutes, 10 goals, 2 assists, 18 bonus, 140 points. Ended up being nominated for the Fantasy Football Scout Team of the Season. Didn't quite make it in, but gave a good name for himself. And up there with an absolute clutch of high-performing Brighton midfielders. Now, we must say, that in all 4 of those seasons, he started at 5.5 million. And one of the reasons why he was so useful as an FPL asset this season was, of course, his price. 5.5 million he started. Didn't finish there, of course, was heavily popular towards the end and did very, very well. And so the first thing we have to talk about in terms of what this all means for FPL next season is that price, which is going to be heavily influenced on that campaign he has just had. And the fact that he's just signed for Liverpool. It's a big club. Usually comes with a bit of a tax. And so we asked you guys, both on Twitter and on Fantasy Football Scout website as well, how much you think McAllister is going to be priced next season. I feel quite happy with myself because I voted in that poll before I could see what the results were. And what I felt like he would be is what proved to actually be the one that you guys mostly think as well. And that's 6.5 million for the start of the new campaign. Seems very in line with someone who we think is going to play in central midfield for Liverpool and has done quite well last season. He absolutely deserves to have a price rise. It shouldn't be too high because, we don't want to get silly. About 1 million seems about right. And with some of that, the influence just being playing for a top club, because that tends to usually whack up the price of everyone at the club, even if they don't necessarily play in an attacking position. So 36.2% of you guys thought he would be 6.5 for the new season. 25% of you thought he would be 7 million, and 23.9% hoping he might be 6 million. But 6.5 the clear favourite. If you've got some thoughts on that, let me know in the comments. Would love to hear what you have got to say on that. And yeah, that is very much going to play a part in whether or not we're going to own him next season. I mentioned about his position and where he's going to play at Liverpool, and it very much is that subject that we come to next, and that is, of course, going to be a very important factor in whether or not we're going to own him in FPL. Where's he going to fit in at Liverpool? Well, the thing is, he is a very versatile player. We've seen him play in a number of different positions for Brighton, especially last season. Potter and De Zerbi like a bit of tweaking now and then, so we've seen him operate as a 10. We've seen him occasionally operate on the flanks, but not too often. But we know he can play there. We've also seen him play as an 8, as a 6, as something in between those two. He's a very versatile player. He's very, very good in that regard, and he sort of knows that too. So we've got some quotes here from McAllister himself upon signing for Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp as well. So the player himself says, well, I've played almost in every position, and I think the managers who worked with me know that I can do it everywhere if they need me. As a player, I'm a player who tries to play as simple as possible. I try to help my teammates defensively or attacking. That's the most important thing, and I'm a team player, and I will try to bring that to this club. And so forgetting FPL for just a few seconds, we have to all really agree that this is a signing that makes a lot of sense for Liverpool. They really have been short someone in midfield who can come in and provide that bit of impetus, both defensively and attacking, to help stabilise that team for a couple of years. When they were one of the dominant teams in the Premier League, and of course came very close to winning the Premier League and then won it during COVID as well. So much of that was to do with that dynamic 3-man midfield, all operating in a very much box-to-box fashion, with someone in the middle sort of anchoring a little bit as a 6, but there was a lot of dynamism just in that midfield, just protecting the back 4 and supplying the front 3. And one of the reasons why the back 4 looked so comfortable a lot of the time was because the midfield was protecting them really well. Unfortunately, the last couple of years, it's kind of staled a little bit. They've tried to freshen things up in that midfield, but it just hasn't worked, and those players are getting a bit older. And so McAllister absolutely is the sort of player they need, and just making reference there to him helping out defensively and attacking wise, that is going to help them. And Jurgen Klopp acknowledging that as well, and acknowledging that versatility. So he said, we're adding a very talented, very smart, very technically skilled boy to our squad, and this is super news, really it is. I do not think the football world needs me to say too much about Alexis's qualities because they are already pretty well known, but it is clear that he is someone who can play in a number of positions in the midfield and is an all-rounder, I would say. He is calm and composed and someone with proper game intelligence. And so from that, it makes it very difficult to know exactly where he's going to play, but I think we can all just about agree that central midfield is probably going to be where he is going to go. He has played number 10 a lot for Brighton. Is there room for a number 10 in the Liverpool formations, whether that's the 4-3-3 that they've used historically or the 3-2-2-3 they've recently switched to? Well, unfortunately, I can't answer that question. If you want more information on that, then by all means, go and check out Neil's article on fantasyfootballscout.co.uk once you've sorted yourself with that membership, where he's analysed where he feels McAllister is going to physically operate within this Liverpool team. And there are very few people on this planet who can match Neil Rigg for that team news intelligence. So make sure you check that out. Let's move on to something that we can talk about, though, that's a little bit more obvious, shall we say, and that is to do with McAllister's involvement in the set pieces, their ball situations at Liverpool. And unfortunately, in this particular area, it is kind of bad news. So he scored 10 goals for Brighton in 22-23. It's a very good return for a 5.5 million midfielder, as we know, but 6 of those were penalties. And in the previous season, of his 5 goals in 21-22, he scored 5 that season. 2 of them were from the spot. And so, because that's such a big pillar of his fantasy returns, we have to ask the question, is that going to be something he can enjoy involvement in at Liverpool? And the answer is probably not. And it seems a fairly obvious one, really, doesn't it? Because if there was any season where Jurgen Klopp had any right to drop his penalty taker, the one, the only, the legendary all-time FPL season score holder, Mohamed Salah, if there was any season where he could have been pulled off those penalties, it was this one. Missed 2 in a row earlier on in the spring, and Klopp held faith in him and proved a good decision, because beyond that, went and scored 2 more penalties. And, you know, the quotes that he gave us after one of those game week 34 penalties was, obviously he wanted to stay the penalty taker, but we had a normal conversation about it. This today was a super penalty. That is really clear. So I think with all the goals Mo scored, we cannot just judge it with 2 missed to go away from it. It was a conversation between 2 grown-up men. Well, yeah, thank you for reassuring us of that, Jurgen. It does mean that it's very, very unlikely that McAllister is going to get anywhere near penalties at Liverpool. And you have to say that McAllister is not the only one with a decent penalty record at Liverpool. Outside of Salah, because other players such as Fabinho, who's got 24 goals from 25 penalties, he's come into the club, still can't get those penalties off Salah, so they are very, very much locked in on him. And so that's unfortunate, because 60% of McAllister's goals that he scored this season came from an avenue that he is not going to be able to tap into at Liverpool. So already, that is a bit worrying in terms of whether or not he's going to be useful as a fantasy asset. The same is also true of set pieces such as free kicks, specifically direct ones. So, of the 4 goals that McAllister scored that weren't penalties in the season just gone, one of those 4 was a direct free kick, and he was the designated direct free kick taker for Brighton whenever he was on the pitch. He took 8 in total, and no other colleague came anywhere near close on that. So he very much was the main man for direct free kicks for Brighton. Is he going to be able to enjoy the same duties at Liverpool? Again, probably not. And this time it's because of the one, the only, Trent Alexander-Arnold, who even while having a bad season, perhaps from open play, definitely from FPL, he has very much held on to those direct free kicks. And Salah's kind of in the picture as well. More recently, we've seen Salah stand over it, roll it into Trent, who's then had the shot. Either way, it's very likely it's going to be Trent with a few by Salah. So McAllister really would have to walk in the door and take some very, very good direct free kicks in training to get anywhere near wrestling them off Trent. And it seems very unlikely that he's going to get those. So again, that's another hit that McAllister takes as a fantasy asset. I mean, I have to say, I hadn't quite triggered how much he was relying on those set pieces for his attacking returns in terms of those goals until kind of going through this. So yeah, big disappointment for me, to be honest, to think, he's probably not going to be able to achieve as much there. But some slight glimmer of hope. It's possible that his move to Liverpool isn't necessarily going to damage his assist potential. Now, he did only get 2 assists in the most recent season, but according to his expected data, which we've got on the screen there, probably should have been able to double that. And of course, with expected goals, if you're underperforming against it, it means you're a bad finisher, right? With expected assists, if you're underperforming against it, it means your colleagues are the bad finishers. And he has obviously chucked in the likes of Danny Welbeck and Ciso for the much more prolific Mohamed Salah, Diogo Jota. I was going to say Darwin Núñez. I can't include him in the prolific conversation. But either way, he's moving to a club with a higher caliber of finishers on the whole. And so you would expect that his expected assists, I think they're going to go up anyway, because I think he's going to be playing in a better team. And then his actual assists versus his expected assists should come much closer together, because he's going to play with a higher caliber of finishes. So 22-23 season, he got an expected assist score of 4.36. Only got the 2 assists, of course. So yeah, underperformance there. But the key here is that just 0.2 of those came from set plays. 4.16 of that, which is basically all of it, came from open play because he just wasn't involved in the indirect set pieces. So he only took 5% of the corners at Brighton. And so moving to Liverpool, where predominantly Trent and Salah are going to take those corners, at the very least he isn't going to lose that assist potential because a lot of it was coming from open play anyway. So slight glimmers of hope there in that regard. Now, a big part of what he's doing in open play is, of course, going to be dependent on what position he plays in. Now, I've already mentioned that how Liverpool's midfield is going to set up for the next season, how midfielders have traditionally performed in FPL in those positions, either in the 4-3-3 or a 3-2-2-3. All of that information is information I can't give you today because it's all part of Neil's members-only article on Fantasy Football Scout. You're probably going to say I'm a broken record, but if you would like to read that in full and you don't already have a membership, go and sign up for a 7-day free trial and make that one of the many things you can enjoy and find out what you can experience for the new season. So if you want information on that, that's the place to go. Link will be in the description. But we can talk about how McAllister operated for Brighton this season between playing a deeper role and a number 10. Now, you have to take some of this with a pinch of salt because, of course, he's changing teams, but it just gives us an idea of just what can be unlocked with this man if he's playing in a more advanced position and what is potentially hampered if he's having to play that deeper role. And so, yeah, what we've got on the screen, it is some information from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. We like to tease you with a few bits and bobs. And what it is on the left-hand side, we've got his goal threat between Game Weeks 1 and 21 when he was playing in a deeper central midfield role up until the end of January. And then from Game Week 23 onwards, he was in more of a number 10 role. And we've got 23 to 30 here on the right-hand side because from 31 onwards, it got a little bit chaotic at Brighton with all those doubles and everything and injuries as well. You know, we had mass rotation influenced either by the need to keep players fresh or potentially bring players into different positions because of injuries. So he did sort of then start flitting between a deeper role and a number 10. So it's kind of hard to really use that as a consistent period. So we think we got a good idea of the differences here between Game Weeks 1 to 21 and Game Weeks 23 to 30. So on the left-hand side, not particularly impressive attacking stats. In that first period, when he was playing in that deeper role, he had just 5 shots in the box. And then he went on to go and better that in just one match in Game Week 23 when he'd moved into a number 10. 6 shots in the box against just Crystal Palace. And that's more than he'd got total Game Weeks 1 to 21. So huge improvement there. Big chances, XG, penalty box touches, just everything across the board, all massively improved for him when he played in that number 10. And yeah, so is he going to be able to play in a traditional number 10 role at Liverpool? Probably not, unfortunately. And so that huge spike in his numbers, it's going to be hard to predict it accurately. That's the thing. Because that is the one thing that I will leave you with before we finish. Outside of that members article, a lot of what we've talked about here is hypothetical, and that's a good opportunity for me to push you guys also to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk to the pre-season page, where you just go to the top, go to the top menu bar, 22, 23, 24, pre-season guide, and you will see every team's pre-season broken down in terms of players in, players out, who's scoring the goals in the pre-season games, who's getting the assists, who's taking the set pieces, who's on the penalties, all those sorts of things, and also the pre-season minutes in terms of different positions. And all of these things will be very, very important for Alexis Mac Allister because I've told you that he's unlikely to get penalties, he's unlikely to be involved in direct free kicks, he's unlikely to play as a number 10 in the traditional sense. But if you keep an eye on those pre-season games using that pre-season minute spreadsheet, historically that discovered Wan-Bissaka and John Lundstrom before your friends did. So make sure you keep an eye on that. If we're seeing from those games that he is playing as a number 10, maybe they completely change the midfield so that they can get the best out of him as number 10. That could happen. Then the pre-season page is the place to discover that. And as we get more and more games under our belts, as fantasy managers tracking that pre-season, we will have more of an accurate idea of just how McAllister is fitting in to this team and where he is in the pecking order for those set pieces and things like that. There are other things in Neil's article that will be very useful to you. So, for example, he's talked about, he's gone into some great detail to talk about McAllister's ability to finish his chances when he's in front of goal. As I've already mentioned, there's a predicted lineup there based on a number of different factors. Nobody does predicted lineups better than Neil. He is hands down the best predictor of a Premier League lineup in the world, and so getting opportunity to go to pick his brains on that is useful. As I said, he's gone back over the last 6 seasons and isolated all of the players who have played in a central midfield role at Liverpool to see what they can bring to the table from fantasy. All I will say, it's not all bad. Some of it is, but not all. And so make sure you go and have a look at that, because that will be a really big contributing factor, I think, to whether or not we feel that McAllister is going to be useful. So all of that is in that article. So make sure you go check that out. I will leave you just with my personal opinion. I think this signing, personally, for me, is a signing that doesn't necessarily mean that McAllister himself is someone who I'm going to be considering, because I don't think I will. But it's a signing like this that makes me a little bit more excited. And I already was excited, but a little bit more excited to have Salah and Trent in my team for next season, because I do think that what McAllister brings to the table, if he does play in that deeper box-to-box role, contributing to defence, contributing to attack, I think that's going to improve Liverpool across the board. I think it's going to help protect the back four a little bit more, or the back three as it is when it's in possession. I think it's going to protect them a bit more to boost the number of clean sheets. I think it's going to help link the defence with the midfield and the attack much better as well. So I think that the attackers are going to get better service as well. And so then, that brings Salah's attacking potential. I think that bumps it up a little bit. And of course, Trent as well. So that's really how I'm viewing this particular transfer. That's what I think is going to be the case. So if you're already thinking that Trent and Salah were in your thinking, I think they've got to be even more in your thinking. Now we must say that one of the things we don't know yet, well, there's 2 things we don't know, is firstly, what fixtures Liverpool are going to have at the start of the season. So if you're watching this after the fixtures have dropped, I apologise for not having a time machine and knowing. But if you're watching this before Thursday, 15th of June, please join us at 9 a.m. for live reaction to the fixture release. We will go through all of the best teams' fixtures. We'll go through the worst fixtures for people. We'll have the season ticker live in the Fantasy Football Scout members area as well, so you can play around and plan a few things. And the other thing we don't have, of course, is everybody's prices. We can have an just about accurate guess about some of these guys. But until that game launches, we won't know just how much money we've got to spend on the likes of Salah, Trent, and indeed McAllister as well. And that's when we'll know for sure once we combine fixtures with those initial prices, and then of course the pre-season matches as well. We need all of those things before we can make fully informed choices. So make sure you keep track of all of those things. You'll be able to catch updates on all of those from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, the home of fantasy football that helps you win at fantasy football and beat your mates in mini leagues, and help get you your highest ever rank as well, as it has done for me. So make sure you check all that out. Now, I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't remind you before we go to like this video so that we know that you like these kind of videos, we can make more of them. Or indeed, if you don't like them, then we won't make any more of them. So it's useful for you to tell us, either by liking or not liking, but please do the kind thing. Subscribe to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel as well, so that you don't miss anything. And the key thing here is to hit that bell notification as well. With there being no deadlines for FPL over the summer, never before has the bell notification been as important as it will be for you to remind you to check in and find out the latest fantasy goings on. So check that box. So that's done as well. Well, with that, I will leave you fine, folks, to enjoy the rest of your summer, and I will see you next time.